Hi, I'm Mark Rowe, and I want to talk a little bit today about Transformation Prayer Ministry and what you can expect to experience when you go through a Transformation Prayer Ministry session. For starters, Transformation Prayer Ministry is a little different than some other ministries like Sozo, because Sozo may or may not take you through an old memory or old hurt or wound and bring healing to it, but Transformation Prayer Ministry by its very nature will. And not all of us are ready to process some of our deepest hurts and wounds at any given time. And we may not even realize that. We might start off down the path believing we're ready, and we might come to some wound that is deep enough and hurtful enough that in the middle of a session we're like, you know what, I'm not ready to process this wound right now. And that's fine. One of the things I want you to understand is when you go through Transformation Prayer Ministry, it's set up as a mentor-mentee system, and you'll be the mentee, the one learning the system, so that you can go off and actually do it on your own, which is one of the fantastic things about Transformation Prayer Ministry, is you learn how to actually work through some of your deepest hurts on your own, where you don't have to talk with another person about it. But during your sessions, when you're learning Transformation Prayer Ministry, know that you're in charge of the session. And what I mean by that is, as a facilitator, I'm going to help you understand where we're at on the process map. I'm going to help you understand what the next question is. But if you don't want to process the next question, you don't have to. In fact, if you're at a point where you're like, I feel like I want to stop now, you're in charge. We'll end that session. If you want to schedule another session at that point in time, or if you want to wait some time and schedule another session, that's the way we'll do it. But what I don't want you to do, and what I have experienced at times, is sometimes people feel like, well, I took their time, I showed up for the session, so I think I need to pretend like I'm going to, keep working through this, where in my heart I'm really ready to stop. If that's where you're at, please say, you know what, I think I'm ready to stop for today, and we'll stop the session. The nature of a TPM session is that you're going to focus on hurtful emotions. We're going to figure out what the memory is behind those, and then identify the beliefs and present those to the Lord. And when we present those beliefs to the Lord, that's when the true transformation comes. Now, I have been in TPM sessions before where people are like, I don't want to dig up hurts and wounds from my past. And if that's the place that you're at, and some of us, when we're younger, we can do that. We can stuff stuff beneath the surface, and we're emotionally strong enough to just keep pushing it off and putting it off. I did that for a number of years, to the point where I just couldn't hold the wall of garbage back in my life, and I needed to sort through some things, and Transformation Prayer Ministry is excellent for that. But there are some people, when they learn that about Transformation Prayer Ministry, are a little bit intimidated, and that's fine. If you're not ready for Transformation Prayer Ministry right now, you understand what the nature of it is. You might come in and think, well, I am ready to try, and that's fine. Let's give it a try. But if you get to a point where you're like, it's too much, I need to stop, I need to take a break, that's fine. But I actually had someone at one point in time tell me that Transformation Prayer Ministry didn't work, when the reality was the questions being asked got to the core issue. When we got to the core issue, the person didn't want to walk through that. And I don't know what happened in their life. I know the very painful things I've gone through in my own life, and I've seen tremendous healing that's come through actually walking through those, identifying the memory, the emotion, the belief, and then having the Lord speak to it and having it transformed. But I won't say that it's been a painless process. And there are other ministries that people get amazing breakthrough at certain levels. I find that there are other areas they don't get the full breakthrough in, because it's needing to get into the emotion, the memory, the belief that actually brings the full transformation. So when you decide you're ready for that, we're here, we're available for you. The next subject I want to talk about is, if you're struggling to hear God's voice during a Transformation Prayer Ministry session, that's okay. It's important to hear God's voice to get transformation. But if that's where you're at in your session, I want to encourage you to just simply be honest with it, because all of us, depending on where we're at currently in our walk with the Lord, have gone through seasons of growing in hearing the Lord's voice, and there are some people that have quite possibly never clearly identified that they're hearing God's voice, but he wants to speak to us. He's speaking to us more often than we realize. But it's important if you get to a place in a session and you're like, you know what, I'm not hearing the answer. Well, part of the transformation prayer ministry process will address that if that's an issue for you. But I did have one situation where an individual, I guess, probably felt like maybe I might look down on them if they admitted they were struggling hearing God's voice. And so they didn't tell me that that was actually what was going on in their session. And I found out later on that that's actually what the core issue was. And so I just want to speak to that in advance. We all, at times, particularly for very painful wounds, those types of wounds where we're like, where were you, God, in that time, that it's possible that we could struggle hearing God's voice. But whether I'm or someone else is facilitating your transformation prayer ministry session, being honest about that is the best response you can have for that situation. One of the other things that we do during transformation prayer ministry sessions is we take notes. But I want you to know that any note that I take during a transformation prayer ministry session, I give to you when the session's over. If you want to destroy it, burn it, shred it, whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do that. I would encourage you to keep your notes so that if you didn't get full transformation or breakthrough in an area, you can go back and you can identify some of the things that were drawn out so that you're further ahead the next time you go through that process, whether you do transformation prayer ministry then on your own, or whether you set up another session and we work through it together again. So the next topic I want to talk about is the importance of giving short answers, concise answers to the questions during a transformation prayer ministry session. Sometimes we fall into the trap of wanting to tell our story, but the reality is if telling our story and going all the details of our story brought transformation, we would have already been set free because we probably shared it. We may not share it with everyone, but we probably shared our story with some people. My mother died when I was young, and it was a very, very painful memory. And the first time I went through a transformation prayer ministry session, I wanted to share all the details, but I had shared those details before. There was no breakthrough. There was no change by that. So because transformation prayer ministry is a free ministry, and because we know that you know the details, and we know that God knows the details, and we know that the key to transformation is identifying what the belief is, the memory, the emotion, and then hearing God speak, that me as the facilitator, me hearing all the details will not get you any closer to transformation, breakthrough, or healing. And so the boundary that has been set on me for doing this ministry is, since it's free, I have to keep the answers that people give to a short period of time. That could be 30 seconds, that could be 2 minutes, but we can't go down the 5 or 10 or 20 minute path of answering the questions, and they ultimately don't bring the breakthrough and the healing. And so I want to set that as an expectation that the answers, it's most helpful to have them on the shorter side, and the reason for having them on the shorter side. Now, in the event that a person is giving a longer answer and they've provided enough detail that we can identify what the next question is or what the belief is so that we can actually move forward to hear from the Lord, then in that situation, I'm going to politely just ask what the next question is to move us forward. But know that there's a reason for it. It's actually for your benefit. It's also for the benefit of so we can continue to keep this ministry free for you and for others. So that's what's going on in that situation. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to be rude. We're trying to get the greatest benefit for you and use the available time for ministry we have most effectively. Sometimes in a transformation prayer ministry, particularly when a person is new to transformation prayer ministry, some of the questions in the process might feel repetitive, and that could possibly be a little bit irritating. So I want to forewarn you of that. So since we have this process and it's a mentor and a mentee, the first time you go through transformation prayer ministry, unless you've done some of your own research and study, you're not going to understand truly the heart of what the question is going after and how the process is most effective. But I want to encourage you to trust that the repetitiveness that occurs at times with some of the questions is actually meant to draw out what you really believe. And sometimes the answer, and I'm guilty of this myself, sometimes the answer we give is kind of surface level. And if we were to present that to the Lord for transformation, hearing the truth associated with it, it would be true, but it wouldn't be transformative. And so we have to get to the point where we've either identified who I am, who God is, or what my condition is. And so in your case, it's, who are you? Who is God? What is your condition? If we find the answer to one of those three questions, then when we present that belief that we've found to the Lord for transformation, when you hear from Him, there's going to be significant breakthrough. And so the repetitive nature that sometimes occurs with the questions is for that reason. So there's a purpose there, but I do understand. I've had people kind of look at me before going like, you just asked me that. You just asked me that again. But it's because the answer is a little bit on the vague side, and it's highly unlikely that presenting that answer to the Lord is going to bring transformation, because the answer is probably, yeah, that's true, because of the vagueness. So that's important to understand about the process as well, so that you can kind of work through it. But also know this, that as you grow in the transformation prayer ministry process, and you've gone through and felt that repetitive thing a couple times and learned from it, it's going to happen less frequently, because you're going to understand a little bit better the answers that truly associate with the beliefs that matter to get transformation. You'll get the greatest benefit out of transformation prayer ministry if you take ownership of learning the process. Transformation prayer ministry is built on the concept of having a mentor and a mentee. So when you come in for your first session, you're the mentee, you're in the learning mode. It's understandable that you know basically nothing or very little, or if you've done your research, great. But you're coming in and learning. Now, one of the reasons why taking ownership of learning the transformation prayer ministry process is greatly beneficial to you is because there's certain wounds that when we slow down and really dig in and process them, sometimes we can be reluctant to really want to share what took place with another person. And maybe there's some ugly things that went through your heart. You're like, I don't want to talk with another person about that. Well, if you understand the process well enough, you can, as you're going through the process, say, you know what, I have the answer to that question in my heart. And then we can move forward to the next question, and the Lord can speak. Because, again, it's about you and the Lord knowing the details. As the mentor, I don't need to know all the details. I need to know that you know the answer to the question and that you know the next step in the process so that you can get transformation. So with that background in mind, if you're interested in learning more about transformation prayer ministry, going through setting up a session, reach out to me. If you don't have my contact information, if you go out to our website, donbushnellministries.org, there's a contact us page, and we can go through the process of setting up an appointment. If you live in the Richland Center, Wisconsin area, we can do it in person. Otherwise, we can set something up on a Zoom or telephone call and go at it that way. God bless you. I look forward to hearing from you.